the devil hum a gospel tune beneath the weight of a blood red moon, just as sleeps in southern dove, but bones remember what lies can't hurt.
All right, welcome back to Make It Make Sense, Alabama. If it affects people's rights, safety, or ability to advocate for themselves in Alabama, we believe it deserves explanation, and that's exactly what this podcast is here to do. My name is Neely Faulkner. With me is my partner, Whitney Skipecki. We're focused on accountability, justice, and vivid understanding across the state. Each of our episodes breaks down complex issues in plain language using public records, personal interviews like we're doing today, and verified information.
And today's guest is Matt Gentry. He is the current sheriff of Cullman County, and he's a candidate for the Alabama Public Service Commission. Gentry is a lifelong Alabamian and a U.S. Marine Corps veteran who has spent more than 27 years in law enforcement. After beginning his career as a deputy sheriff, he was elected sheriff of Cullman County in 2014. He became the youngest sheriff in the state at the time. He has now served in that role for over a decade. During his tenure, Gentry has emphasized transparency, community engagement, and public accessibility. Under his leadership, the Sheriff's Office has hosted thousands of community meetings, safety classes, and outreach initiatives aimed at strengthening relationships between law enforcement and the public. Now, Gentry is seeking transition from local law enforcement to statewide service through a seat on the Alabama Public Service Commission, the body that is responsible for regulating utilities like electricity and natural gas. His campaign centers on the idea that regulatory decisions should prioritize everyday Alabamians with a focus on accessibility, accountability, and direct engagement with constituents. Thank you for coming on today, Matt. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate y'all letting me come on and talk about the Public Service Commission.
Thanks for pulling off the road too, and getting to us quickly. We're trying to, get as many candidates in there before the primaries as possible. So thanks for making time in your schedule for us.
No, thank y'all. The law would have probably got after me if I was going down the road and trying to drive, going down the interstate and doing a podcast. So they may get after me if I was doing that.
So
we want you to arrive alive.
Funny story is we actually interviewed someone who was for governor, and they actually started the pod. We didn't show this because we refilmed it, but he was filming in the car, and he got blue lights turned on to him because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Anyway, that's why when you said I'm going to pull off, I'm like, okay, good, because we don't ever want somebody driving while they're doing it. We have had that happen.
No.
So tell us. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's hard to pay attention and do an interview and drive at the same time. So, and you definitely need to be wearing your seatbelt if you're doing that.
At minimum. Yeah.
So for people who are first hearing your name, and I'll admit when we first saw you, that was the first time I had heard your name. Tell our audience, who is Matt Gentry in a nutshell?
Well, in a nutshell, I was born and raised in Cullman County. Graduated from school there and went to UNA to play football, actually, right after I graduated. And I didn't know that you had to be good at football and school to stay there. So after a year, it was a lot easier for me to join the Marine Corps than stay in school. And so I joined the Marine Corps. I was with 4th Battalion, 14th Marines. It was a reserve unit out of Bessemer. Started meeting guys in law enforcement and said, hey, you know what? That's what I want to do. So I started my law enforcement career in 1999, and I spent 11 years working drug enforcement, and then in 2014 ran for the office of sheriff, was elected. Then I was the youngest sheriff in Alabama. I was 35, and have been blessed ever since. The last 2 terms I ran unopposed. I'm married to my wife, Susie. We've got 2 boys, William and Walker. William's 17, Walker's 15. So they keep me going all the time. It's never a dull moment around my house.
I feel for you. I have a newly teenager, so and
Ooh.
I've been through two boys, so I feel for you.
I have three. I have three under 7 years old, all boys. So I'm getting
Bless you.
there. Yeah.
Bless you. Well, me and the boys, we're either hunting, playing golf, or we're doing something. So when I ran for sheriff, they were 3 and 5. So they were little bitty fellers.
Wow.
Hmm.
I bet they love it though.
They do. They do. They've not been as excited about this statewide campaign as they were the sheriff campaign when they were 3 and 5. But if they go with me on the statewide, it's usually, hey, Dad, when we leave, let's go eat here. So they've got their own priorities of where we eat at on the campaign trail.
I love it.
Admittedly, when he sent me a text, Whitney, saying that he was about to log on, for the podcast, I said, hey, make sure you go over to Jim and Nick's. Because he said he was in Prattville. And I said, make sure to go to Jim and Nick's so you can get I didn't say this, but it was so you can get those sweet little biscuits.
Those are great. Oh, they're very good.
So you said you started talking about your campaign, your statewide campaign for the Public Service Commission. Tell us, for people who don't know, what is the Public Service Commission and what do they actually do? Can you explain it to us in plain terms?
Sure. So in May, I announced my candidacy for the Public Service Commission, and so they regulate utilities like Alabama Power, Spire, natural gas, trucking companies, railroad, the Port of Mobile. They deal with fiber, broadband, anything to do with infrastructure and growth. And the way I looked at it when I announced my candidacy is my granddaddy was a farmer in Cullman County, raised sweet potatoes and cattle. My dad is a forester by trade. Went to work for Drummond Coal Company in 78, spent 24 years with them doing all the reclamation. And so it's a position that if you bring balance, it makes our businesses and our citizens successful. What you see is if it's out of balance, then we're in trouble. That's why you're seeing high utility rates. You need someone that will stand up and say, hey, we need to bring balance. We need to make sure everybody's successful on every level, just no different than being the sheriff. As a sheriff, my job is to take care of the businesses, take care of our citizens, make sure our community's balanced and safe. And I look at the Public Service Commission the same way.
Well, have you ever seen that meme of that guy? And he's like, our power bill's too damn high. That's what I feel like the entire state is right now, with the fists in the air. I don't know if I'm sure you probably have seen the whole Alabama Power corruption Facebook group, which has grown to like a ridiculous amount of people. So many people talking about how high their power bills are. So I'm just curious, is that what made you run? How did the PSC get on your radar?
Well, the PSC got on my radars because I knew some people that had worked around the Public Service Commission. And when I announced I was going to retire in 2024, as sheriff, I wouldn't run a fourth term, which I do. I believe in term limits, and I'm on my third term as sheriff, and I believe we have to do self-term limits at this point in life and just do what's right by people. So I started looking at the Public Service Commission. I had a friend of mine that had worked there before and said, this is a good place to be, that you travel the state and you get to help people all across the state by the decisions you make, standing a line to protect our Alabamians. And you look at power, you look at natural gas, you look at trucking companies, railroads, Port of Mobile, everything that it touches has to do with infrastructure and growth. So it was a position for me that I knew regulations because as a sheriff, I'm regulated to death. So I knew if I could get in there and get elected, then I could stand in line and be a voice for all Alabamians, just like I have as a sheriff.
Is there something that the Public Service Commission does that directly impacts people's daily lives, but maybe people don't realize it?
Sure. Of course, utilities, you're looking at gas and power. That's the biggest two issues. But also trucking companies. If you allow regulations that come in that are woke in essence to our trucking companies, guess what? When those rates go up, then it's going to hurt everyday citizens, because if they go up 20% within trucking companies, guess where that's passed down to the consumer? So your groceries are going to go up 20%. Your things that you need, your toiletries, everything that they bring in will go up. So you need someone standing there to say, hang on just a second, we're not going to allow that. Those are not constitutionally sound. Those are not right. We're not going to let those be imposed upon our citizens.
I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Whitney.
No, you're fine. I just think that it is an interesting transition. And so I guess though, aside from like it just being kind of like you knew people in the PSC, what do you think maybe coming from law enforcement that will be impactful, from your standpoint, if you were to be elected to the PSC?
Well, number one, bringing transparency and change. When I was elected sheriff, I had a lot of ideals that I wanted to accomplish. I have currently 170 employees. I run a budget of about $23 million a year. I've got 430 inmates a day. I've got federal inmates, state inmates, city inmates, county inmates. So we're always looking at ways to make it better. And that's the way I look at the Public Service Commission. Until the last month and a half, nobody even knew anything about the Public Service Commissioner. And now
Yeah.
it's the hottest topic in Alabama. But you need somebody that will, go out and work hand in hand with the community, tell them what's going on, and having a plan to make it better once you get in there. It's just like me as sheriff. When I took office, within the first month, we found that we were paying for phone bills that we didn't even have or use, and I started saving $12,000 a month. Well, that's $144,000 a year. And I think there's a lot of issues like that within the Public Service Commission that you can do to make it better, whether it's working with Alabama Power as you regulate them to find, hey, these are ways that we can help our citizens with Alabama Power or natural gas or trucking companies or even the railroads as you're doing railroad inspections. Hey, this is something that we can save cost, and those cost savings can be passed on to the Alabamians.
Absolutely. And so go ahead, Neely, you're good.
I was just going to say before you move on. So I've noticed that several times throughout this, and even in your bio, we included that you're big on transparency, and we are too. That's literally why this podcast exists. So what does transparency actually look like to you at like the PSC level? When you're talking about transparency, what does that mean? Getting across to people concerning transparency?
Sure. First is meeting with people, letting them know what's going on within the Public Service Commission. I think that, currently there's not a good media outreach on the meetings. They have one meeting a month and not everyone knows about it. There's a lot of people that would like to take part or attend those meetings. I think you need to make it available to people and even moving it around the state. There's nothing that I know about, and it could be in the law, but I don't believe it is. It says you've got to have every meeting in Montgomery. Well, what about having one meeting in Baldwin County, one meeting in Mobile, have one in North Alabama, different counties? You see judicial figures that do that all the time throughout the state. And I think when you do that, it brings people in, they get to talk to you, they find out what's really going on at the Public Service Commission, and you can hear their voice and their concerns on, hey, this is what we're seeing with our utilities. What can you do to help in this aspect of our utilities?
I would love to see live streamed PSC meetings.
Yes.
If it could be done, I would love to see them live streamed. Yeah.
Well, I don't know why they couldn't be done. There's nothing against the law. I mean, our county commission meetings are live streamed. So the Public Service Commission meetings should be the same. Any of our meetings that we do within county government are live, or in Cullman County, they're live streamed. So I don't think there's any difference, and they should be able to be live streamed out to the public.
Well, listen, Matt, we
Absolutely.
can't get away with corruption, okay, when we're live streaming our meetings. We just can't do that, okay? I feel like that's the only like valid reason that somebody would be like, no, let's not. Because we hear this.
Yeah.
Whitney and I attend public meetings all the time. And there's one locally, I'm not going to mention who they are, but they fought live meetings forever and recording of meetings. I mean, they fought it. And I'm like, why? Why are we fighting it? That just tells me that there's something more that needs to be seen. I really need to go to those meetings if we're fighting the recording of them.
Absolutely.
No, I agree. And when you're an elected official, I mean, you represent people. You are the voice of the people. And, you take ownership of that when you're elected, you know that your life is out in the public view. It's kind of no different than me being the sheriff. If I go to the grocery store, I typically will see people that I know. We're going to talk about sheriff's office stuff. They've got questions. And that's just part of being in politics and being an elected official and accessible to the people.
Absolutely. We're on board with you right there. We agree 110%. So, is there anything maybe when you first announced that you've since learned, or topics, different things that the PSC would govern that maybe you're not well versed on, or something surprising that you learned about the role that you will be overseeing?
Well, it's kind of like being elected sheriff. And I know I always refer to being elected sheriff, but one position is, even though it may be different, the concept is still the same. There's a lot of things that I know about the Public Service Commission, but until you get elected and get in there and get boots on the ground with it and your hands on it, then it's hard to see all of the changes and everything that it does. I know the Public Service Commission has a great staff down there. I think I looked, there's 64 to 70 employees down there. The best way to do it is by meeting with them and finding out the day-to-day operations and where you can make those positive changes, just like I did when I was elected sheriff. When I was elected sheriff, I was one of the sheriffs. Do you remember the old food bill laws? And, they had all the controversial issues with food bill where sheriffs personally had to run the food for the jails and you had to pay
Mm.
personal taxes on it. I had to take a loan when I was elected to buy the food for the jail. Do y'all remember all of those controversial stories?
Don't remember, but like I've read stories, like I know some history on
Okay.
it as well. So, yeah.
So I was one of the sheriffs that said, listen, this is a negative. This negative should not be brought to the citizens of Cullman County. And so I worked with our legislators and we actually changed the law. We put the old law on the ballot to change it from a private account to a public account that's audited. And so our citizens voted that out in Cullman County in 2018 at 88%, which is almost unheard of on a local constitutional amendment. But we did that by explaining to the citizens, hey, this is what it is. This is what we're going to do with it. And this is how we're going to make it better. And I think the Public Service Commission is the same way. Let the citizens know, okay, we got here. This is what we found out. This is ways that we can make it better, save money for our citizens, and move the Public Service Commission forward.
Been seeing a lot about the PSC, I guess, and people, there's that whole thing going back and forth of should they be elected or should they be appointed? I mean, I'm personally in the camp of they should be elected because at least that, provides some amount of transparency and accountability. But we've also seen that, maybe not members, or I guess it would be individual members are too close to utility companies, that they're accepting PAC money from, Alabama Power Employees PAC and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
which to me is a huge red flag. So
Mm.
do you think that's a fair criticism? I mean, what are your thoughts around all that?
Well, I'm always against taking away the right of the people to vote. If people want to change the law, then they need to vote on it. The Public Service Commission's been an elected position since 1915. And I'm against taking away the voice of the people, which is through an appointed positions without letting them vote on it. If they want to vote and change the law, then I think our citizens in Alabama should have that right. And so you do have to look at the corruption of stuff. I mean, it's government. I had the question asked to me on Right Side Media. They said, when we think about the PSC, we think about corruption. And this is my answer. I've been extremely blessed. I've had a great career, 27 years in law enforcement. And when I retire, and I'm retiring, the way I've lived my life is this. If I want to go out to eat, I go out to eat. If I want to go play golf with my boys, we go play golf. And if I want to go hunting, I go hunting. I don't need anyone else to do those things for me. And that's the blessing that I have to being so independent is I don't need all the corruption things that they've talked about that we get questions on. And because their analogy was the whining and dining through hunting and golf trips and food. I think in government, you need people that are independent, that are not beholden to anyone. I've been extremely blessed in my campaign. We've raised about 475,000. It's all small businesses, individuals, and I've been blessed with the endorsements that I've received. I got the Farmers Federation, Forestry, Manufacture Alabama, Petroleum Convenience Market, the Alabama Republican Assembly, and then last week I got the Realtors endorsement. So, it's just a grassroots campaign, and independence is good. I've always, I guess you'd say, had an independent spirit because I don't know. Do y'all remember, and y'all may not have kept up with it, but the issue with constitutional carry and sheriffs across the state? So I was the sheriff that was pro constitutional carry, that I actually spoke at the House committee for constitutional carry. So I was the only one, and I've always been that way. If I believe in something, then I'll stand up for it and explain my reasonings for my beliefs.
Good.
Me too. Me too.
Amen.
There's some
So-
hills that I'm willing to die on, you know what I mean? And when I feel like somebody's rights are being stepped on, then that's one of those hills. So I applaud
That's
you for
exactly
that.
right. Yes. So,
Well,
and that kind of leads me to my next question. Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Matt.
No. Well, as a sheriff, your job is to be constitutionally sound. I mean, that's your job, is to uphold the Constitution, do what the Constitution says, and protect your citizens. That's why sheriffs are elected, not appointed.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sometimes I feel like they forget that, but it sounds like you're doing a pretty good job.
Well, I've tried. So
It was something you said earlier. I'm sorry to interrupt, Whitney, but something you
No,
said
it's fine.
earlier was that people that are elected politicians are there to serve the people. And I really truly think that most politicians have forgotten that fact. I mean, we have these conversations all the time. Most people that you speak to, they don't trust politicians, they don't believe in big government. And what is the reason behind that? Well, it's because of these things that are happening at these local and state levels that we're just letting people get away with, I mean, think about it. Even the bill that was coming through about electing versus appointing people to the PSC, when the people came together and started, speaking out about it and saying, hey, we don't agree with this, what happened? The bill got tabled, and that's not to say it won't come back, and I'm sure it probably will, and somebody in there is going to get their claws in something, but it speaks to the fact that the people really still do have a voice, and those elected officials are there to serve the people, period.
that's right. And, there's this, there's another PSC bill that's
I was going to say, I've
there
got
now. So
some
yeah,
notes here. Yeah.
yeah. And so, you're 100% right. I mean, we're here. If you're going to get in public office, it's your job to be the voice of the people. If not, then go do something else. Don't get in there and do things that make it worse for our citizens, and even make it worse on elected officials, because not all elected officials are bad. Get in there and just do what's right, and then you don't have to worry about the other stuff.
You don't have to worry
So-
about people like us if you just do
Hey,
what's
y'all
right.
don't bother me. Yeah. Hey, you don't bother me 1 ounce. That's
But we
Well,
can
you
be
don't live in
somebody's
Baldwin County.
problem. Yeah. Yeah. I expose corruption. So it's yeah, that's my favorite pastime. So, but hey, if you keep your hands clean, like I told everybody, we're good. Me and you are good then.
yeah. Hey, my granddaddy. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, we want to hear about your
You're
granddaddy.
talking about keeping your hand. You're talking about keeping your hands clean. So my granddaddy went into World War II at 17 and was in the Navy. And all my life growing up, he was like, Matt, he's like, you got to keep your name clean. You got to keep your name clean. And I'm like, well, Papa, I'm taking a bath. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, but that ain't what he was talking about.
No.
And it's just like you said, if you keep your name clean and you do what's right, then you don't have to fear anyone.
That's right. It's a whole lot easier to just tell the truth and just do right by the people. That's absolutely
right.
right. So, shifting to some of the legislation, like Neely said, there we saw the bill that came up for vote that eventually died about the PSC and the appointed versus elected. But then And again, as someone who follows corruption and exposes it, I pay very close attention. And to see a bill come right out the gate right after that, Senate Bill 360. So this was really a structural overhaul. So how I interpret it as somebody who follows this stuff is that, okay, the public dissented, they shot down this bill. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come out with something that expands the PSC to include some appointed members, and then we're going to have the what are they calling it? The energy. What were they calling that position? It was
Director of Energy.
Yes, the director of energy. So when I see, a committee or a governing body just take no for an answer. They basically said, okay, we shot down the bill to the public. They're speaking to us, but we're going to circumvent and we're going to come up with another bill because they want to maintain control. And I think Alabamians did not pay close enough attention to that fact. Like, who is trying to hold on? And I know the answer to this, but why are they trying so hard to hold on to the power that they have over the PSC?
I mean, it's always speculation to why people want to do anything. But for me, being in law enforcement, I've dealt with things for 27 years that were out of my control that I couldn't control. It's, I have no control over the legislators or those that are making the laws. But what I have told citizens as I went around the state, because the things that you're asking about is the topic of every conversation that I go to. I mean, I'm headed to Houston County here this afternoon, and I would lay a steak dinner on it that it's going to be the topic of conversation. So this is what I tell everyone. There's always good things and bad things in everything that we do. Even if you want to change something, you can find good and you can find bad, but I think it needs to be changed when people get in there that have the right mindset. When I see things that need to be changed, hey, I'll work with our legislators and the governor to make those changes. And that's my goal, is if it does change to a 7-member commission or it doesn't change, then I'm always going to be there willing to help to make it better. And I think that's the most important thing you can do, is to make it better than the way you found it. So the thing that I don't like, and I've expressed my concern with this new bill, of course, the 7-member, is that 4 would be appointed in July. And we've not even finished our election. So you've got the primary and then you got the general election. So you've got 4 that would be appointed in July. And we've been running a race for the last 10 months. So
you said it was Senate Bill 360, right?
It should. Yes, I believe so. I navigated away from that page.
To see some of the names on that bill, some of the sponsors of that bill, and then to see their relation to solar farms and some of them that received money from the Alabama Power Pact. I mean, sorry, Matt, don't mean to throw you out there, but I mean, it's something that if you're elected to the PSC, it's something that people would come to you about, right? At some point, we have to stop asking. And I like that Whitney asked this question to say, what is it that who on this list here is owed a favor or owes someone a favor? I mean, really, it's really what it comes down to. Somebody on this list owes somebody a favor. That's why you're seeing something like that come back in. And give us enough time, we'll figure out who that is. But I hope that people that are that those that are appointed, that are elected to this position, that they keep that in mind. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't know you. I'd never met you prior to giving you my card at the Alabama Republican Women's Luncheon here in Baldwin County. Didn't know you, but speaking to you now, you seem like you got your head on straight. Like. Like you're talking about some of the same things that we're talking about, just in a different part of the state. So maybe you get in there, but I'm just kind of throwing this out there for listeners. I am going to put a copy of this bill in our resources here, and we have other members of the PSC that we are going to interview, and I'm going to make sure I mention this too. But I'm going to reach out to every single one of these people, because I didn't realize this bill was there. Whitney, why didn't you tell me this?
Neely, there are so many things that happen all the time, but I will say this: we can also add this bill on there. And the beautiful thing about there's another bill that is still, it was read once, but it's House Bill 475. This one actually, from my research, has a greater chance of passing, which despite all of the nonsense happening around the PSC, I'm excited to see this. This one is called what I would call like the Alabama Utility Transparency Bill. And it really is a procedural reform bill that is focused on how electricity rates are reviewed, not necessarily who controls them. It does not restructure the PSE, and while it doesn't directly lower rates, it does force accountability into the process. So this is the one that I've been excited about.
Mhm.
The one that you're looking at, Neely 360, that one made me want to rip my hair out. I'm like, they're just going to get their way somehow. They're going to make sure they do. But this one actually, as far as the House, it was voted on unanimously the first time it was read on the floor. So that's always exciting. But yeah, lots of legislation around the PSC.
Well, and I will tell you, I support Matt Butler. So Matt Butler is the one that presented the House Bill 475. He's
Okay.
not too far from me over in Rainbow City. Mac's a great guy and a great conservative, and him and I talk a lot, and that's what he's wanting to bring is transparency. So I don't know where the two bills will go. I don't know if they'll try to merge them, make some changes. I've not heard. I know there's only 6 days left in session, so it's not a whole lot of time, but it's a little bit of time.
That's the time to get stuff slid through.
We watched it close. Oh, let's see. Now I got all into that. Now I got away from my questions.
Right. Now my blood pressure's up. Thanks a lot.
Right. So again, when it comes to PSC utility cost, I'm sure you get it from constituents, you hear it from all over. But what do you believe is truly driving these high utility costs at the end of the day that maybe people need to understand?
Well, for me, the first thing is to get in there and look and see what all the charges are coming from. Now, I can tell you, and I don't mean this to sound negative, but my opponent's been in there over a decade, and I think he's voted for 14 pay rate increases. Now, at some point in governing those utilities, you've got to stop and say, no, we're looking at what's going on in Alabama. We're looking at what our citizens are putting up with. We've got to stop. We need to look and see if we can decrease those rates. And that's not been done. And I think that's something that can get in there and look and see where you can cut cost and move money around to help the ratepayers. I think that is something that can be done.
I think it's crazy to know that so many people are struggling, not just in Alabama, but across the board. And we just continuously raise prices on literally everything and cost on literally everything. And the pay has not come up to match that. And then when we have a conversation about it, the conversation switches to, oh, well, that's just woke thought. No, that's just common sense, you guys. That's not a left or right side of anything. That is, people are struggling to survive. We have such high, issues with mental health. We've got high suicide rates. We talked about suicide rates in veterans. We had Kent Davis on here. He was the former director of Veteran Affairs, Alabama Veteran Affairs. We talked about that, you're a veteran yourself. So I'm sure that's a topic that you hear about a lot. But what it kind of boils down to is the cost of living. A lot of times when people are struggling so much just to survive, it affects so many facets of life. So this is actually your position that you're campaigning for is probably more important than what people realize. It's far more important than, other positions, I would say.
Sure. No, it is. And, I think you got to have a track record in taking care of the community. Y'all probably don't know this, but we do a big sheriff's rodeo in Cullman. So in 2015, when I took office, the rodeo had been shut down. So we passed a new law to have our rodeo back, because in government, we've got to have a law to be able to take in money and what we can do with it. So we passed a law to have our rodeo, and it's a 3-day event. And in Cullman County, our rodeo pays for all of our community events. So our community events don't cost our citizens a dime, whether we're doing ladies self-defense, whether we're doing going to the range, they're shooting. We do a special needs rodeo the day before our rodeo. We had 1,700 special needs children there. and we give them T-shirts, and Chick-fil-A's our major sponsor. But the night of the rodeo, so our rodeo is a 2-day event. That's on a Friday and Saturday. I give away 3,000 tickets to the rodeo. The most expensive thing I have on the menu is $1. It's $1 for a hamburger. It's $1 for a hot dog. It's $1 for a Coke. And somebody asked me, they said, well, Sheriff, why do y'all do that? Well, we're so blessed. Why not bless the citizens that come to the rodeo? When you can bring your children and your family and eat and have treats for less than $20, that's a good day for me.
That's right. That's right. It should be that way. We don't, Matt, I know you live in Cullman County, but down here in Baldwin County, we don't have a Jack's close to us. Jack's Hamburgers. Okay. There's one in Loxley, but I'm on like I'm in the spoiled island part, but I'm from Calhoun County. And so there was Jack's everywhere. Okay. Growing up, like my mother used to sing the Jack's song all the time. Right. Well, anyway, we don't have a Jack's here locally, and I love Jack's. So anytime I go back to Calhoun County, I always stop and eat at Jack's. And I just thought it was so crazy that I could stop and eat dinner, for my whole family at Jack's for less than $20. And you can't do that anywhere else. So why is Jack's able to do it, but we can't do it anywhere else? I mean, it's a serious question here.
No, sounds like they got a smart plan on how they do their purchasing and selling. So when you said Jack's, I thought you were talking about Jack's Western Wear in Cullman County, which is the greatest Westerns. So you know how I dress. So I'm always just jeans, cowboy boots, and I don't have my cowboy hat on, but you can see it behind my seat. I've even got a cowboy hat hanger. And Jack's Western Wear is the best store in Alabama. It's the only place I buy all my clothes. So, but
I'll make sure and link to them in the show notes here.
Yeah,
that's funny. No, the only time I've ever been to Cullman or Cullman County in general, I got my dog on Craigslist. Somebody had a farm in Cullman, and their dogs had gotten together, and they put it on Craigslist, and I thought they were local to me, but they weren't. They were in Cullman, so I drove over there, and this is like literally the best dog. I met him at the Cullman Walmart parking lot and got my dog Bodie. He's a little Australian Shepherd and Border Collie mix. But no, that's the only time I've ever been to Cullman. I do have team members though, Matt, that are from Cullman.
Okay.
So we have some of our team members here at Murder Creek Media that help us to investigate cases. He's actually one of our team leads on one of our cases. He's a CASA advocate with the court. So they're from Cullman. But other than that, no experience in Cullman. I'm telling you, we're spoiled down here on the island. We don't get out much.
I've been to Cullman twice on confidential business, but it's a quaint little area.
It is. We're
I'm about to go now.
100. Yeah, we're about 105,000 citizens. During the spring to the fall, will gain another 30 to 50,000 with a lake. So we, in the spring we're 130, 140,000 on average. So. But we try to keep nonsense down in Cullman, but we do make the news every once in a while. So, we had President Trump. Yeah, we had President Trump there in 2021. And that's the first time that I got to meet him. That's where I deputized him as a deputy sheriff in Cullman County. So he was pretty funny.
That's crazy.
Let me ask you a question, though. We're talking about Cullman. Just to be clear, though, members of the PSC, do they represent districts? I know there's place 1 and place 2, but do they represent districts, or is it just statewide?
No, it's just statewide. It's all 67 counties, so there's not districts. This new bill, they're trying to make it congressional districts, where you would have 7, and they run in congressional districts.
I guess I can kind of see that, but I don't agree with anything being appointed. Even if part of them were elected and some are appointed, I don't agree with any of that. That's just my personal opinion.
I just don't, again, like that's just the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. Like it's somebody was really trying to maintain control of that. So
trust me, they're getting an email right after we log off here because I did not realize that, but now my blood pressure is like skyrocketed.
Well, and this is why somebody asked me about it. And I said, listen, if you get the right 3 people that will do what's right, then everything that we're talking about really is a moot point. You just need the right people in there to do what's right and represent Alabama.
Well, and again, 7 members, right? So that's 4 members that would be added. Those appointed members, if they're all
the
chosen
majority.
by, they're the majority. So I mean, like, again, it was like another attempt at grabbing control of the PSC. And I'm like, it was so blatant to me. I'm just like, it just one of the craziest bills I think I've seen go through legislation this year.
I mean, I've seen
It's
others that are pretty bad.
So I know that you mentioned, I have to ask, this is always important to me. So I do, I expose corruption, and going through campaign finance records is one of my favorite pastimes.
well, mine
You
too. I
mentioned
love
that
it.
you're grassroots.
She doesn't have any hobbies, Matt.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
has no hobbies.
I love it.
I know, I really do too. And trust me, I'm quick to call them out. But you do mention that you're grassroots, but have you taken or do you plan to take any campaign contributions from utility companies or any related PACs?
So no, so Alabama Power cannot donate to a candidate. So or they're not supposed to.
Directly,
Yeah,
they cannot. Yeah.
But I can tell you this, I would not take a dime of PAC money that contributes to my opponent. I would not take a dime of that PAC money. I have gotten some PAC money. Of course, the Farm PAC, the Farmers Federation, Manufacturer Alabama. I'm sure the Realtors PAC will send me some contributions.
Mhm.
I got the Veterans PAC out of Mobile. So, for me, it's very, conservative in nature, but no, I would not. And I don't know, and I know this sounds, I should know this, but I don't know if unregulated utilities, if they even get involved in these kind of races and donate money. I haven't noticed any contributions to candidates from those, but no, I would just say this, the tax that donate to my opponent, I would not take that money.
Now
Are
I
you
got to
the
look
only
into
other
him.
opponent?
Yeah.
Is it only the two of you running for, what place are you running for?
Place one.
Okay.
Okay.
And is
So
it
it's just
only
two of
you
us.
and you're the incumbent? Okay.
Yes. The other place 2, there's 4 in that race.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. I think I had those backwards. So we're interviewing somebody else tomorrow that's running for place 2, but we have not reached out to your opponent for an interview yet. We've been so
Most
busy.
incumbents don't respond.
Actually, as a matter of fact, I haven't had a single incumbent respond
Yeah.
to any requests, not a single one.
Really?
That should tell you all you need to know. And no matter if it's at, governor's level, lieutenant governor, like whatever, it doesn't matter. I have not had a single incumbent even respond.
Well, we won't keep you much longer, but I would like to know, is there anything that you would like to change immediately within your power if you are elected, or something you think that needs to be looked at?
Getting in first, I would like to meet with all the employees and see and really get a boots on the ground eye view of the daily operations of the Public Service Commission. And then once that happens, see what kind of things that we could do to make a positive change immediately. For me, just getting in there and getting my hands on it. I mean, I look, the budget is about $21 million a year is what they're spending, which they've only got just shy of under 70 employees, like where I've got 170 employees now. And I think once you get your hands on it, see what's going on, and then I think we can start making some real positive changes. Start looking into what can we do to decrease amounts for the ratepayers. Where can we make changes in the utilities companies that will help them and our ratepayers?
Absolutely.
You ever seen that show Undercover Boss? I feel like that's
Yes.
needed at like a government level, like we're kind of laughing, but I'm being for real. Having somebody go in that people don't realize is, like whatever, and seeing where the real issues are. I love that show for
Sure.
that same reason. But it's something like that is really needed. But a lot of times employees are kind of overlooked, and they're the ones that see what goes on. They're the ones that hearing complaints and understanding what the issues are. So if we don't ask them, then how are we to know? So I like that you're even thinking about that. I would be curious to know if your opponent has questioned the employees and what they would say.
Well, when I was elected sheriff, as soon as we took office, of course, we had one big meeting and swore everybody in. And then we met with all the employees individually and asked kind of what their goals, what do you want to achieve? What would you like to see better at the office? What could we do to help improve and move forward as we, progress in the community? And we did a lot of those questions, and 80% was good. 20% was your normal 20%. People would say, oh, you just leave us alone. We're just going to go to work and get paid. You wanted those that, that wanted to get in there and really make positive changes throughout the sheriff's office.
Absolutely.
That's right.
We are getting to the end of our questions, but I do have to ask, and this is a loaded conversation depending on the constituents that you've spoken with, but the solar farms, I do follow national, news as well as obviously state, local. And there is a hot debate, and conversation happening over data centers and solar farms. Have recently, you may have spoken to people from down here in Stockton when you were in
Yes.
Baldwin County. I'm not sure, but they're popping up everywhere. There's a lot of proposed sites in Alabama, and the PSC, you guys are kind of the entry point for some of these national companies that are coming in. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm always against, we'll just address the data centers first. So you're going to bring a data center in, you're going to use up land, and it's going to provide very little economic growth and stimulation to those areas because they can be run remotely. They have very few employees, so they're not bringing job stability and economic stability throughout the community. I understand keeping up with China and these other countries when it comes to, AI and all this other information. But my take on it is if it does come, then the company itself, the data center itself, the people that bringing it, they have to pay the extra increase in power utilities and water utilities. That should never, ever, ever be placed on the back of the ratepayer. That's the one that's bringing that in because they're not providing the jobs and economic stability like what we need. So if they're going to do that, then they need to pay for it, not our hardworking citizens are out here day in and day out. The other issue with the solar farms, just like Stockton, we're losing 5,000 acres of farmland or land, that's, we don't
For one
know
site, yeah.
for one site, yes. And we don't know the environmental hazards and who's going to take care of them. That's my first question is all it takes is one hurricane, one tornado. These solar panels are going to get destroyed. They're going to be leaking those chemicals into the environment, which are going to hit our creeks, our streams. Not only are they going to be on that property, but they're going to be going to other landowners' property around. And the next question is, well, who cleans it up? And if those environmental hazards go, what else is it going to destroy in our community? And we'll lose that land to provide food and the things that we need to make Alabama successful. So, I'm against doing something that's going to hurt our environment, come in, and we don't know the end result. I don't think they've done any research to the good and the bad. When you look at, the solar panels last, 10 to 20 years maybe? And how long
If
will
they're
they
not destroyed by Mother
if they're
Nature,
not?
yeah.
Yes. And then how long does it take till they start to leak and drip that stuff into the environment? I'm a pro coal. I'm pro secondary means for power. And again, use our natural resources that we have. Don't wipe out all of the stuff that's made us a great state and country for years and years and years. So we need to look at those secondary options that we have at hand. Again, I just say coal because I grew up when my dad working for Drummond Coal Company. And that's how I had food and clothes on my, food to eat and clothes on my back was because of those companies. And they do provide a good stability when it comes to power in those other areas. So
Absolutely. Good answer.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on the hour now, so good luck to you in the primaries. And we would love to have you back on if your schedule permits. You want to talk a little more, reach out to us, and we will include links to your website and your donation page and all that, like we do for all our other candidates. So for our audience that is listening or watching, you can go to our website at murdercreekmedia.com for links to listen, for the links to all the resources that we've talked about, including the Western wear place that you talked about too.
That's
Yes.
right.
So we'll throw in a little plug for them there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Thank y'all.
And we will talk to you later, okay?
Good to see y'all.
Thank
Bye.
you, Matt.
Make It Make Sense, Alabama is brought to you by Murder Creek Media. If you've never heard of us and want to check out some of our other projects, including our investigative true crime series, visit murdercreekmedia.com to learn more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all soon.